Chapter 11 of the Lean Startup is about building an adaptive organization. And what that means is an organization that continually adapts to issues that come up during the process of product development that have both to do with learning from your customers as well as managing a technical team to produce the efficiencies that are required to go through the iterative cycles of product development. So according to Eric Ries, to create an adaptive organization, processes need to be in place to make sure that problems are properly diagnosed and addressed. To create this process, Eric Ries recommends using what's called the 5 whys to address problems that come up during the process of product development that have to do with managing a technical team. Eric Ries recommends the 5 whys as an approach, which is a process of asking why 5 times whenever a particular problem comes up. To give an example, let's say a bug comes up in your production code base and you aren't sure why a bug has come up, and this is right before a critical launch. Now, applying the 5 whys would involve asking why that happened. Why did a bug come up during such a critical phase of the product development process? And then you would ask why for the answer to the question you posed. And then you would just keep asking why until you get to the deep-rooted issue at hand. Perhaps there's some issue with how responsibilities are distributed within the engineering team. Perhaps there's no manager of the process of pushing to production, or there's no clear-cut distinction between production-ready code and code that is still required for testing. At the heart of the 5 whys process is a constructive approach to constantly delving deeper into problems that come up and to constantly be monitoring for deep-rooted issues. And this is before scaling so that you don't end up scaling those problems as well. Instead, you end up nipping in the bud deep-rooted issues like, for instance, organizational chaos within the engineering team, or maybe a lack of direction to do with product development. All these deep-rooted issues that can actually be right behind problems that may seem mundane, like pushing production-ready code on Fridays or Friday nights or Saturday nights, that sort of thing. Another recommendation that Eric Ries makes when applying the 5 whys is to proportionally invest effort based on the frequency of the problem involved. Let's say you encounter a minor problem and you aren't really sure if it's really an example of a deep-rooted problem. Then you would just invest proportionally into that minor problem that comes up, fix that problem, and then just be aware of whenever it comes up again. And if it does, then of course you should engage in a much longer 5 whys session where you attempt to diagnose the deeper rooted problem that you think is behind the mundane problem that you just encountered. So to give an example, let's say there's this tendency for engineers to push code at the wrong times, to push code on Friday nights. Let's say that happens once. The proportional investment in curing that problem would be to simply tell the team to not do that again, to not push code on Friday nights when everyone is just not very aware of what's going on to production, and then to just leave it at that. But let's say it comes up again and again and again. Then that would require a much longer 5 whys session where you would start by asking why is code being pushed on Friday nights, and then maybe the answer you would get would be because things are urgent. Then you would ask why are things urgent on Friday night, and then engineers would respond with because there's just too much work and we need to push as quickly as possible, which is why things get left to Friday night. And then you would ask why is there too much work, and that would probably reveal to you organizational inefficiencies in the product development process where maybe you're just building too much based on the technical talent you have available. That's the example of how proportional investment would work. The more deep-rooted the problem, or the more frequently a mundane problem exists, the more you would invest in structuring a 5 whys session to make sure that the deep-rooted problem behind the string of mundane problems that has come up is addressed. Something to be aware of when applying the 5 whys is to make sure it doesn't descend into the 5 blames, where you then have people blaming each other for the work that's involved. To avoid the issue of your 5 whys session evolving into a 5 blame session, make sure all key stakeholders are involved in the 5 whys session, and to also make sure that there is a constructive mentality in the room, that there is a mentality towards diagnosing and addressing problems, not shifting blame onto each other for those problems. So that's it for chapter 11 of the Lean Startup. Obviously, there's a lot more to building an adaptive organization than just creating 5 why sessions, but applying 5 whys is a great start to building an adaptive organization, an organization that properly allocates mental resources so that problems that are significant get the most attention and problems that are insignificant get the least attention. And you would do that by applying 5 whys effectively, and an organization that also diagnoses the most deep-rooted problems and continues to overcome these problems in a collaborative manner. So that is the point of chapter 11, to just kickstart the process of thinking about how to build an adaptive organization. One great way to get started is to apply the 5 whys. So that's it for chapter 11 of the Lean Startup, and I will see you in chapter 12's summary.